Who is the best quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft? What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with my full evaluation and scouting report for the top 5 quarterbacks in this year's NFL Draft, including my thoughts on their strengths, their weaknesses, and more. Also, where I believe they should be picked, and what I think of them entering the NFL. Let me know your thoughts on the best quarterbacks in this year's draft in the comment section below. Don't forget to spike the like button for more NFL draft evaluations and scouting reports just like this. And subscribe if you haven't already for more NFL content on all 32 teams. In terms of what I'm looking for from a college quarterback entering the NFL, I'm looking for transferable skills that will work for them on Sundays. I'm looking for intelligence. I'm looking for arm strength and ability. I'm looking for mobility. I'm looking for anything in their game that I believe will be transferable to the NFL. And that is how I evaluate these prospects. I look at their potential. I look at what they brought to the college level in terms of success. But I do not look at stats. I do not care about statistics when it comes to college football. I care about circumstance. I care about intangibles, but I do not care about stats. I'm looking for ability, and I'm looking for if this player can succeed in the NFL. You can be a great college player and not be a great NFL player. They are entirely different things. So now that you have that out of the way and you understand where I'm coming from, let's get to the list. The 5th best quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft. This may surprise some people because he is projected to go very high in this year's NFL Draft. But personally, when watching his tape, which is what the evaluation is based off of, I do not see it. I do not see a first-round pick in Will Levis of Kentucky. I see some things that people would like. I see the arm strength. I see the prototypical size. But when I break down this player, I see far too many inconsistencies, and I also am missing the eliteness or the true upside potential that everybody else seemingly is speaking about. I do not see this. I do not see the Matthew Stafford comparisons that some people are bringing to Will Levis. I don't see the arm angle magnificence, the accuracy in tight windows, the arm strength through the roof. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some plays where he wows you, but there's far too many inconsistencies with his game. So let's break down Will Levis as a prospect. He looks the part. He has the prototypical size, and he's pretty muscular as well. He has a muscular build, which I don't know if that's exactly a great thing. You know, when you think of muscular quarterbacks, you don't necessarily think of great quarterbacks. The only one I can really think of is Cam Newton. But even then, like, Cam Newton was more like naturally big, and he even had issues with his throwing motion and things of that nature because he was too big. Right? Tim Tebow, Brady Quinn, these guys were too, big and muscular to really be functional as a quarterback. When you think of great quarterbacks, like Tom Brady is extremely lanky, extremely flexible, and everything about his game was based on that because he could take a hit because he had that resistance due to his flexibility and his arm, right? And you need that flexibility in your arm to be a great passer. You think of Aaron Rodgers, you think of Patrick Mahomes, these guys that can, have this elastic arm in the way that they throw the football. Now, with Will Levis, his muscular build does not affect that he can make all the throws. It's more of a consistency thing with him. It's more of an accuracy issue where his placement of the football is inconsistent, but his arm strength certainly allows him to make every throw in the book. There's no question that that will transfer to Sundays. Now, he is a good athlete, and I do believe that his arm strength and his size and his athleticism, which his athleticism in terms of speed and quickness and power and things of that nature are all NFL caliber and even plus, right? Like, this guy can run a little bit. This guy can move a little bit. This guy has that arm. This guy has that size. So in terms of the prototypical traits that you're looking for from a franchise quarterback, Will Levis certainly has them. Now, in terms of positives and strengths, I think that his style of play is very endearing. I enjoy watching him play because he has this old school style of play where he's very tough and he's very physical, running the football. He can take a hit in the pocket, and he definitely has that mentality. And I appreciate that from a quarterback. He's calm in the pocket. He can take a big hit. He has a great ability to sling the football with very minimal effort. The ball comes out of his hand very easily. It's not forced. It's not like he has to throw with any sort of like extra effort. It's very easy for him to throw the football. He really didn't get a lot of protection at Kentucky. Like, the offensive line sucked. And that is good, in my opinion. That's a positive because he faced NFL pressure. He faced regular people in his face, which is a good thing because he'll be used to it at the NFL level. He worked under center a lot, and I like to see that from college quarterbacks because nowadays it's kind of rare. Like, you see a lot of offenses in college that are, bubble screen centric. It's a lot of short passes. It's a lot of like shotgun, snap and throw, one read. But Will Levis played last year at the very least in a NFL style offense, and it actually gave me Josh McDaniels vibes while watching the offense. A lot of like I formation, power football, play action with the pulling guard, all that stuff that you would see from like a Josh McDaniels, Tom Brady offense, something of that nature. So I did like that, and he was very good off of play action for a majority of the time, especially hitting crossers and things over the middle of the field. He was good at that. He does have good enough mobility to work off of play action boots, which you'll see in the NFL, and I'm sure that will be incorporated into his game at the NFL level. And yeah, I just really like how he operated from under center in play action, and you could see that more in the NFL. He is a power runner who can take off and create yards. He's probably more of a straight line athlete. He doesn't have super agility, but he's got pretty good speed in the open field, and he can get low and hit you with his shoulder, lay into you, and create extra yards that way. His short to intermediate accuracy is pretty good. Overall, he does have some inconsistencies, but the zip and the arm strength certainly shows up in some tight window throws over the middle of the field. Nice touch on the deep ball at times where he does allow his wide receiver a chance on a one-on-one to make a catch. I thought that maybe stood out a little bit more than some of the other quarterbacks in this class that maybe have more inconsistent deep balls. I like the way that the ball the smooth wrist motion of his throwing motion. It's just it pops out of his hand. He has one of the strongest arms in this class without a doubt. I don't think it's the strongest in this class, but it is a good NFL arm. I think he executes the screen game very well, the way that he can get the football from the shotgun and just quickly throw it out there. He does a good job of mostly being accurate, placement, delivery, and the quick game is very, very good, and I think he executes that well, and I'd like to see that at the NFL level as well. He did throw a ton of quick game, especially in the game versus Georgia, where obviously that was part of the game plan to kind of disrupt that pass rush and slow it down a little bit. He does do a good job of that and does do a very good job of making it a catchable pass in the screen game. And man, he played with terrible receivers, like a ton of drops. So I definitely give him bonus points for trying to kind of make players around him better, or at least having to, because he played on such a terrible offense, in my opinion. Not a ton of good, wide receivers wide open versus good defenses, which I also say he has to throw into more tight windows, which is obviously something at the NFL level that you have to be used to. That was something where, like, I looked at a guy like Tua out of Alabama and everyone was wide open. It was like, that's going to take him a while to adjust to in the NFL. And now that he's in an offense, Tua is, where everyone's wide open again, it doesn't seem to matter so much. But when he wasn't, it did matter, right? So it takes time for a lot of quarterbacks who are used to everyone being wide open, at least college open, to going to the NFL level because it's a lot tighter in coverage. And my last positive is that he has potential. I think the guy has potential because of all these skills that he has, but I'm not necessarily convinced that he'll reach it. Now, his weaknesses and his negatives. His flick release. Okay, he has this flicky release that kind of reminds me of Zach Wilson. And I could see that getting out of whack a little bit at the NFL level because he uses, a lot of his upper body, and he doesn't really use his legs very well in his release, and he relies a lot on just his arm to be able to get the ball there, and I don't think that's, very consistent. So he's going to have to work on his lower half and his upper half and connecting that in his throwing motion, and that's why I think he has such inconsistencies with his accuracy. The biggest thing that stood out to me from a playing standpoint is he is very, very, very bad. Like I like this immediately just said I'm not drafting him. His inability to see pressure at all. Like his awareness to pressure is extremely slow, and maybe this could improve, but like he doesn't have the knack to see it. Like blitzes, pressure, knowing where to go with the ball, decision-making under pressure, just all bad to me. Like lack of pressure awareness, slow recognition of where to go with the football. Not great under pressure in terms of, okay, I've got a guy coming from the edge. I can see it. Now I can escape it. Even when he tried to escape it, he didn't have the speed, the quickness, the ability to be able to maneuver and get away from it, which is concerning because maybe you see it late, but then you can at least get away with it if you're quick enough, fast enough, athletic enough. But he is not. So that concerns me. His brain is slow, and then his feet are slow in the pocket. He doesn't have that twitchiness to be able to get away. He struggles with identifying pressure pre-snap and post-snap, and he did not create anything from what I saw out of structure when under pressure, which is a huge thing for me. I think this makes him more of a quarterback that is probably a guy with a lot of traits that not necessarily is going to be able to be a starter in the NFL because I don't think his pocket passing is good enough or consistent enough for him to be a great pocket passer. Maybe it could get there. I just don't see it because a lot of people will talk about his running or his power running, which I agree. If he's on a designed run, he can do it. But it's not going to be great at the NFL level. It'll be fine. He can do it every once in a while. But what I'm more so looking for from an athlete as a pocket passer is their twitchiness or their ability to manipulate the pocket and pocket presence. And his pocket presence is very poor, in my opinion. He does not force a lot of passes, but his processing can be slow at times. Like he's not going to make a pure bad decision. He doesn't make a lot of bad decisions, but sometimes he needs to be a tick faster in progressing through his reads or finding his open receiver. He goes through like the moments where he pump fakes or he just doesn't pull the trigger on something that is open. And at the NFL level, you can't get away with that. You're going to get sacked. Right? He has a tendency to throw high into tight windows at times. He sometimes fades away in the face of pressure, and that causes inaccuracies. His accuracy issues, again, I think are tied to his mechanics because he's oftentimes trying to do like a bad Aaron Rodgers impersonation where he's like doing this flick thing all the time, and it just leads to inaccuracies. Like he'll throw a deep out route to the left and it will be like 15 yards over the guy's head, and I'm like, whoa, what was that? You just hit that guy like 3 plays earlier. High-end arm strength but lack of control. Again, sometimes high-end throws but a lot of subpar ones. Can't really make accurate throws in a multitude of ways. So this speaks to arm angles. He does have that kind of like arm like delivery that you would think he could throw from a multitude of angles, but his ability in the pocket to be able to throw kind of like off platform and stuff like that, it isn't accurate enough. He doesn't have that ability, in my opinion, at least to a high degree. Everything that he throws is 100 miles per hour. He rarely throws with a lot of touch. And he needs to improve at times throwing with more arc and touch on deep balls, especially. So that's my evaluation in terms of positives and negatives for Will Levis from Kentucky. Again, looking at those positives and negatives. Overall, to sum it up, prototypical size, arm strength, toughness, quick game, play action. His offense absolutely stunk. So if you're going to draft him, you're believing that he's got the arm, he's got the toughness, he's going to build upon that, and he's going to fix his mechanics and become a very good pocket passer, similar to somebody like a Matthew Stafford. If you do not believe in him, you may see somebody that is not aware to pressure, maybe doesn't pull the trigger quickly enough in the pocket, which leads to maybe he's not the smartest quarterback in going through his reads. Maybe you do not believe he can consistently fix his mechanics or accuracy, and that he just doesn't have that playmaking ability innately, and he has to learn it, which is very hard to do at the NFL level. There's other quarterbacks in this class that are much better in terms of their innate playmaking ability, which we'll get to. So that is my number 5 quarterback in this year's class, Will Levis. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. The 4th best quarterback in the 2023 NFL draft is Hendon Hooker of Tennessee. Hendon Hooker has 2 issues that most people believe are too big to overcome. And that's why a lot of people don't have him inside their top 4 quarterbacks, but I do. I have him 4th. Hendon Hooker tore his ACL at the end of last season, which is huge because he's going to have to convince to teams that he's the same player as before, he can move the same, and that he's the same athlete. On top of that, he has to convince to teams that he'll be ready to go for his rookie season to be able to develop. Because on top of that, he's older. He's an older prospect. Now, where I stand is he's good enough to still be better than my 5th quarterback. He is good enough to still be my 4th best quarterback in this class. And he's good enough, in my opinion, to be considered a high-end 2nd round pick and maybe even a late 1st round pick. And I would draft him over the 5th quarterback on my list, clearly. Now, let's talk about the prospect that is Hendon Hooker. The age, the injury, everyone's talking about that. But let's talk about the positives, the strengths, the negatives, the weaknesses, okay? So let's begin with the first thing is he played in a very strange offense at the college level that is not very transferable to the NFL level. It's not going to be a lot of what he does at the NFL level in terms of the concepts and the actual, like some of the formations and things of that nature. But that doesn't take away from the throws he made at college and the passes, the accuracy, the arm strength that we saw on display within the offense, that a lot of them, the passes themselves, are very NFL transferable. He threw a lot of vertical. He threw a lot of middle of the field, intermediate passes, which is the money for a pocket passer in the NFL. And what is Hendon Hooker? He is a pocket passer. He is more of a pocket passer than he is this mobile running quarterback. For sure. He is a pretty prototypical pocket passer, but he has, I think, very underrated athleticism, quickness, and speed in combination with pretty good size. He's 6'3", 217 coming out, so he's got very solid size, and he's got thickness to him that I think a lot of these quarterbacks in this class do not have. I think him and CJ have very solid size and thickness, but I think Hooker is even a bit kind of wider, you would say, especially in the low end. His legs do stand out to me in terms of just the thickness in his frame. And then we look at the positives. Okay, so Hendon Hooker really stood out to me because, well, first of all, he's got that build. So that's check, right? You're looking for that prototypical pocket passer, and he's got the build to withstand impact and a lot of hits. Then you look at, okay, How is he in the pocket? He's got strong composure in the pocket. He very rarely ever gets, scared away from just taking a hit and making a throw. And that really impressed me on the tape. I think he might have shown the most toughness in the pocket in terms of the big time ability of just guys bearing down on him and him just not caring whatsoever and just throwing a rocket right over their face. So that is huge. That's life in the NFL. He does not flinch whatsoever in the face of pressure. He's extremely smooth, in my opinion, in terms of his consistency of his mechanics. And especially on screens and short passes, the ball just comes out really smooth. His motion is extremely smooth, and it's very consistent. It might not be entirely correct, but it's amazing how smooth it is and how consistent it is, and it's beautiful to watch it. In combination with that, he has a strong arm. He doesn't have the strongest arm in this class, but he has a strong arm for NFL standards. He has strong accuracy. He's probably the third most accurate out of these 5 quarterbacks, maybe even second. And he has really good, from his spot in the pocket, if he's protected, he's putting it on the receiver. If he is protected, he has time, and he has a good interior pocket, he'll be able to deliver a strike. And that's pretty good because not all quarterbacks are as accurate as he is in the pocket. He rarely makes a bad decision or a bad read. Now, a lot of the offense was very kind of simplistic to read and go through, in my opinion, compared to, let's say, Bryce Young or CJ Stroud's offense. I thought it was more simplistic, but it shows how much he mastered the offense. He rarely ever made a bad decision. He rarely ever threw an interception, especially in his last season. So really, really good. That speaks to his accuracy, his ball placement, his touch to receivers, but also to just his decision-making in general and him going through his reads and finding the right receiver to throw to. He really is good at looking one way and looking off a safety and okay, I'm going to go to the left, but then I'm going to pump maybe, or I'm just going to look that way, and then I'm going to unleash, reset my feet, and then throw to the right. Really good at that. I thought he showed a capacity to do that at a high level. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Jacoby Brissett. And I would say that's a compliment because Jacoby Brissett just had his best season of his career. I think he's like a low-end starter, high-end backup. If Hendon Hooker can have Jacoby Brissett's career, I think he'd be happy. But he reminds me a bit of that. He's not as tall, but he's got that stocky kind of size to him. And he's got a strong arm, and he's good from the pocket, but he also has some ability to run. I think Hooker's a better, quicker, twitchier athlete in space than Brissett is, but they kind of have similar pocket styles, in my opinion. That's kind of who he reminded me of. He makes a lot of throws look really easy, especially high-end throws over the middle of the field. He makes a lot of slants and, in cuts, things of that nature look really sound, really easy, which is not always easy. And those are a lot of NFL throws. He's extremely composed, especially in big situations, under pressure, things of that nature. Never really broke a sweat whatsoever. Played against really good competition this year, and I thought he played pretty well, other than maybe against Georgia, and he was composed in those situations. He has a ton of NFL throws from within the pocket, very accurate, especially in in-breakers. And when he knows where he's going to throw, when he knows the read he has, the guy he's going to throw to, he's accurate, and he throws it with power and touch. So those are some of the passing strengths. And then you move into maybe the deceptive strengths. He's a deceptive scrambler. He ran a lot of draws, quarterback draws, and designed runs a fair bit. And he was pretty good at it. He was good at breaking tackles, good quickness. He actually ran away from some defenses that you would be surprised that he ran away from. Alabama, for example. He can take off and accelerate and create chunks of yards on the ground. He has short area quickness as a rusher, but not so much in the pocket. We'll get to that in a second. Decent speed. Not great speed, not Richardson speed, but decent speed nonetheless. I would say he's faster than Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Now, his negatives and his weaknesses. Very stagnant in the pocket. Sometimes. He can get into this funk, which is a large weakness of him, where he just like forgets he can move. Like sometimes he just stands there, and I love the toughness to be able to sit in there and take a hit. But sometimes there's a rusher like beating his guy, and like I don't know if he doesn't see it or he just like takes the sack, or like he doesn't avoid him with any twitch. Like he needs to learn how to just like move a little to the left or the right. Sometimes he just is so like staying in his spot and he's stagnant and he doesn't move at all, and that's a problem. Like even like Tom Brady was the master of just like subtle movement, and he needs to get better at the subtle movement. And very strange pocket movement consistency. Like it's weird to see a guy that's so good as a runner and quickness as a runner to not have that in the pocket. He's a little bit too deliberate and statue-esque again, and especially not just in the pocket, but also as a thrower. Sometimes he gets too much into like, okay, I got to throw this way. I can't get away from my mechanics whatsoever to deliver a pass that maybe is not there unless I set my feet and stuff like that. Like he needs to learn how to be a more flexible thrower, throw from different arm angles, throw from off platform. He's not good at that. So whenever he's moved off his spot, in a way that I felt like this was similar to even one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, like Peyton Manning's a big example of this. Like Belichick would always say, like Peyton Manning, when he's off his spot, he's not as good because he's not able to flexibly, throw the ball as well as he would just in the pocket. He's deadly, right? So he's not a super flexible thrower, and he needs to learn. I think he's athletic enough to learn how to do this. He struggles to adjust and move off of his spot and have top-tier accuracy and power. This includes his ability on the run. He's not great on the run, and he rarely ever throws on the run. His motion is very vertical, which sometimes I think leads to high passes, and like sometimes he overshoots a deep ball occasionally, which is not ideal. He hangs on to an initial read sometimes too long. Sometimes it's like, okay, the guy is not open, especially against good defenses. Like the guy's not open, don't throw it. Just like, and this isn't really a decision-making thing. It's more so like, okay, just move to the next guy. Like he's not going to be open. Get quicker. So at the NFL level, you have to go from 1 to 2 to 3 faster, right? He's a little bit slow in terms of that. Takes preventable sacks, which goes back to his pocket presence because he doesn't move just subtly in the pocket. And sometimes he takes sacks that are very preventable. And then lastly, a lot of one read offensive stuff, which I've kind of touched on already, but it's a lot of like, okay, my first guy's there, bam, I can hit him every time, but like I'd like to see more of the progression through reads at the NFL level that you're going to have. So overall, I like Hooker quite a bit, probably more than other people. I think that he is pretty good. I think his tape is a better prospect than Will Levis for sure. I think it's a better player. Like he was better in college than Levis. He was better in college than Richardson. Okay. In terms of his college ability and what he showed on tape, there's a reason he was in the race for Heisman. It's there. Like in terms of a player in college, he was better than those players. Now, I don't think he's better than Richardson in terms of what you would project to the NFL level and the potential of their ability at the NFL level and how much they have to grow because Hooker has played much more. He's much more experienced. But he has a pretty high floor. And I think a decent enough ceiling that would make you think about him in the late first round, second round, because if he can recover from the ACL, if he can work out some of his pocket stuff, and if he can become, a slightly more flexible thrower in terms of his mechanics, I think he could be really good at the NFL level. So he has potential, even with the age and the injury. And I think even if he doesn't, he's still a good backup at the NFL level as my projection. So Hendon Hooker is my 4th quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft. The 3rd best quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft is the freak, the beast, the monster, whatever adjective or name you want to attach to this man out of Florida, Anthony Richardson. Richardson is very enticing, very intriguing, and was one of the most difficult quarterback prospects I've ever had the opportunity to scout, because he has so many things that you just really, really like in terms of athleticism. And even quarterbacking things where it stands out. But there's so many inconsistencies and so much to work on entering the NFL that it makes it difficult to project what he'll be at the NFL level. Is he worth the risk straight up? Probably. Not with the first overall pick, not in the top 3, but after that, if a team picked him inside the top 5, top 10, I understand it, because the high upside is immense. The upside is QB1 in this class. The upside is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And let's talk about it. So Anthony Richardson is a big boy, and he is physically superior to the rest of the class. In terms of his positives and strengths, first thing that stood out to me was his arm strength. He has the strongest arm in this class. Not a debate. He has the most powerful arm in this class in terms of tight window throws, the speed, the velocity, the arm strength, the way the ball comes out of his hand is unbelievably high end, okay? For even the NFL level. It might not be Josh Allen, but it's top 5 probably in the NFL once he gets there. He does not have a deliberate long release for a big quarterback. He does not have this big wind up kind of Trey Lancian type of deal that I didn't see. Okay, his release is quicker than you would think from a guy of his stature and size. Typically, guys that big need more time to wind up. He can take big hits in the pocket due to his size. Not that he does very often, because he's so elusive and so quick and fast, even for his size, that he doesn't often take hits. But if you there's a couple plays where he just does a play action drop and he's being asked to throw the ball down the field and you have to stand there and make a deep throw. He gets hit a couple times, takes it with ease. It's nothing for him. He is going to last however long he plays in the NFL. It's not going to be a problem. He's hard to take down for a sack. I mean, in combination with his size, he's got really, really quick feet for a big guy. Like, his ability to twitch and move and horizontally avoid defenders is really impressive, especially for a guy of his size. It's kind of Josh Allen-like, but I'd say he's quicker and he's faster than Josh Allen, and he's just as hard to take down due to his size. I don't know if he's as chunky as Josh Allen is in the rear end department. I don't think so, but he is really hard to take down in the pocket. And it's rare that you see somebody that has like twitch that would rival, let's say, I don't want to say Lamar or Kyler, but like Deshaun Watson at his peak or something of that nature, but also is as big as Cam Newton. So it's very rare to see that in a quarterback. On top of that, you have somebody that has just effortless ability to keep his eyes downfield and avoid sacks at the same time. Because he's so physically impressive and he's such a good athlete, he can just run around, avoid defenders, stiff arm a guy away from a sack, just juke a guy out, still looking down the field, which is impressive, and trying to make a throw. Whether he makes that throw or not is sometimes dicey, but he can do that and he can avoid sacks at a high level. His pocket movement, just in general, not getting outside the pocket like I've been talking about, not the ability to get away and elude blitzers or rushers, but the ability to be in the pocket and kind of step subtly moving. This is something I didn't like about Hendon Hooker's game. He's good at it. Like, for a guy that is so athletic, you would think that like a Justin Fields, which I don't like about Justin Fields, Fields is not very good at just moving from left to right in the pocket subtly. He's very, very kind of deliberate, and he just takes off and he runs. With Richardson, he actually has really good subtle movement in the pocket and understands how to manipulate the pocket without having to run. Sometimes you're almost looking at him and you're like, can you just run, dude? Like, you'd be able to get 10 yards here if you just kind of like step to the right and just ran around the corner. And I think at times in the NFL when he's younger, especially if they play him early on, he's going to be able to just drill into his mind, okay, yeah, I can sit here all day, but let's just run. Like, let's just get out and run. And that's the floor of his athleticism that it brings to an NFL offense. Similar to Justin Fields, right? That we saw last year with him. Like, he couldn't hit, water falling out of a boat, but he could run. So it allowed him to be able to, have that floor of that ability to gain yards. And then you talk about his awareness to pressure itself. Like, he's very good at avoiding it. He's very good at subtly moving away from it, but his actual awareness of pressure is good. Like, again, I see a lot of quarterbacks that are runners. I see a lot of quarterbacks that are athletes. A lot of guys that, they don't have the upstairs to be able to, okay, I see it coming. Like, so then I can plan. That's what makes Josh Allen really special, because he actually sees a lot of it coming. So then he knows how to, and that's why Richardson, I feel like, is so good at subtly moving, because he knows it's coming before it comes. And he's very playmaker, natural feel for the pocket and for quarterback, which is very good in terms of a starting point. Okay? He can accelerate and get to the edge extremely fast. His speed is real. His acceleration is real, even for his size. Like, once he decides to take off, he is gone. Okay? His speed to the edge, like his ability to run to the edge, is Lamar Jackson type of speed. Okay? Justin Fields type of speed. His ability to get to the edge is extremely impressive, and it almost looks like he's in fast forward, because you do not believe that a guy that big is able to run and move the way that he does, which I think is going to transfer to the NFL. When he decides he wants to run from a scramble position, it takes him 1 or 2 strides to actually create a positive gain. It doesn't take much, because he's so big, he's so long strided. It's very easy for him to just get back to the line of scrimmage or run itself and create positive yards. And to me, he isn't just a straight line athlete. Like, he can move. Like, I felt like Will Levis was a little bit too much. Like, he can't really move side to side. Richardson can run fast, and he can also move horizontally and avoid people. And he, in my opinion, if you're comparing him, like, Fields is extremely fast straight away. Richardson can move laterally better than somebody like Justin Fields. He's closer to a Lamar in that regard in terms of his ability. Not saying he's Lamar or Kyler in terms of that, because those guys are much smaller, much twitchier, but Richardson is closer, in my opinion, to those guys. He has real power. I mean, he breaks tackles versus Georgia, which is all you need to know. Right? He's in open space. He breaks tackles. It's not even that hard for him. So his power is going to translate to the NFL in a way that Jalen Hurts' power did, or Cam Newton's power did as well. Okay? He will also get easier coverages in the NFL because of his ability to run. Because his ability to run at the NFL level will be one of the best at the quarterback position. On designed runs, on scrambles, defenses will have to compensate, which leaves easier coverages for him to become a passer and develop as a passer, similar to what we saw from Lamar early in his career. So I love that for him. Now, on top of that, he doesn't always look to run. He tries to be a passer, some of the time. He's not a guy that just takes off and runs. I think that was one of the things I didn't like about Justin Fields. This is something I don't really worry about Richardson. He will try to throw the ball if he has to, and if that's what the design is, he's going to pass. He's not just going to run. Okay? A lot of his running is actually on design runs. He doesn't scramble actually as much as you would think, in my opinion. He's pretty accurate down the field. Passing the ball, his strength is probably deep passing. and his ability to, obviously his arm strength can get it there, but his ability to put touch and arc and accuracy on a deep ball is pretty good. And I can clearly see how you would fit him into an offense. His offensive fit, at least early on, is run first, right? And he's going to be a design element of the offense, and then he's going to be looking to strike deep down the field, play action, things of that nature. And I think that's where he can succeed early in his career. Chunk plays, that's the type of, I envision Atlanta. I envision Atlanta for the fit. Maybe, like a Shane Steichen, Eagles, Colts now potentially attack, something like that. He's pretty good at resetting his feet in the pocket under duress and trying to make a throw. He had a number of drops by his receivers, which I think is inflating his completion percentage and things of that nature. A lot of drops that I felt like were not his fault. He doesn't make a lot of bad decisions, and it's mostly because he's so athletic that he can avoid bad decisions. So if he doesn't like something, he is athletic enough to kind of move, scramble, throw it away, do whatever he has to do to avoid the bad decision, which is good. Sometimes pressure causes him into a bad decision or two, but it's not too often that he makes a pure bad decision or bad throw based on judgment, because his judgment and his athleticism allows him to avoid those things. Similar to a Jalen Hurts at the NFL level, how Jalen Hurts isn't the best decision maker in terms of passing the ball, but he avoids a lot of bad decisions by how he can run, right? So that's where I see it. And some of his decisions are, maybe they could be better. Like, he could have his eyes in a better place to throw the ball. But for now, he at least doesn't make bad, straight up terrible decisions, okay? His negatives and his weaknesses. When rushed, he can make some bad decisions. Okay, I just talked about his decision making, but if there's pressure all around him and he can't escape, sometimes he tries to be Superman and he does throw an inaccurate throw. And because of his inaccuracies and his mechanics, which are one of his big weaknesses, he can throw an inaccurate ball, which goes to a defender or off the receiver's hands into a defender's lap, something of that nature. He seems to lose his mechanics quite often and try to sidearm a lot, like just this loose sidearm thing that I don't like, especially when he's on the move. It just gets out of whack and inaccurate and very inconsistent. He misses a lot of layups, a ton of layups, like easy throws on a silver platter. He misses it. Like, there's throws that it's for a touchdown, fullback in the flat, tight end in the flat, whatever it may be, on a play action boot, misses the guy. Like, straight up misses him. So that is not good. You can't miss those in the NFL. He has this kind of weird delivery where it's a weird wind up sidearm thing, like I just talked about. But I think that's what makes him miss easy throws, in my opinion. It stems from mechanics, and it stems from that release point of where he's throwing the ball. His accuracy is a problem, okay? It's a big problem. Like, it's bad a lot of the time, and it's inconsistent. When he's not definitive of where he's going to throw the ball, like if he's not like, that's my first read, that guy's open, okay, bam, throw, like set, throw, bam, it's there. Like, he can do that. If it's not, okay, one's not open, two, I got to reset, okay, I got to throw it. Sometimes he can get all wacky. Okay, so, and even times when it's his first read, it's like, first read, okay, where do I properly place the ball? His placement isn't always good. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, sometimes right, left, whatever, but he's not the most accurate placement-wise either. So he's not, right now, a refined, mechanically sound passer. He's not whatsoever. That is a huge weakness of his, and his biggest weakness. Sometimes he tries to be a playmaker outside the pocket, and he simply cannot deliver the throw because he's not good enough as a passer. So he can get halfway there, but unless he just purely throws it with arm strength, sometimes if he tries to throw it with touch, he misses the guy, okay? His release and motion at times reminds me of Trey Lance, which scares me. Just going to put that out there. He needs to learn how to take some heat off of his throws. I think he would be a more accurate passer if he tried to deliver with a variety of touch and layers to his throwing, right? Like sometimes he just drills it. Like it's a screen pass, he just throws it as hard as he can. Right over the middle, throws it as hard as he can. Like needs to learn how to take something off of his passes. His eyes can be better at manipulating safeties and coverage. This is things that will be fixable at the NFL level, but sometimes he just stares down the middle of the field and it's like, bro, where are you looking? Like you're just staring down the middle of the field and then bam, I'm going to throw to the left. Like he doesn't like subtly look off safeties or anything at this point. He doesn't like look to the safety. Okay, I'm going to look him off and then I'm going to throw it back to the right. Something like that. He doesn't do that. And his reading of the safeties is kind of immature, lacking experience. Sometimes he is unaware of like where to go with the ball necessarily, like in hot situations. So if he's under pressure, which I think causes him to make mistakes, he doesn't know what to do with the ball if he's under pressure from a blitz or like a hot situation. I don't know if that's an offense thing at the college level with Florida or if that's his problem, but yeah, he didn't seem to have a good handle for blitzes, edge blitzes, and understanding, okay, where's my hot guy? Where do I go with the ball? So those are the positives, the negatives. Overall, I think this is a guy with a ton of physical upside that his work ethic will determine how good he is. If he can match the work ethic of Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, the way that they were flawed, but they came into the NFL and they fixed some of their issues, their accuracies, their mechanics, their throwing. If he can work really hard, and I don't know that. I've never talked to him. I've never been in an interview with him. I've never talked football with him. I don't know. So I can't answer that question, but teams will have to determine that. Okay? But if he can work really hard, I believe that this guy can be very, very good at football because I think he has enough room to grow where he can fix his mechanics. It's not too crazy, and he'll learn some of the nuances of quarterback, like reading safeties and things like that. He's so athletic that his floor is high due to his athleticism. The rushing ability is so real that if he just becomes a marginal passer, he'll be a good NFL starter. So he can be QB1 with proper work ethic and technique training, but that will take some time. This is not a guy that you want to start from day one. It's a guy that you want at least on the bench for a year. Okay, he might even be a year away from being a year away, but as long as it pays off at the end of the day, that's what you're drafting him for. He has not played a lot, so he has a ton of room to grow and a ton of experience and things to learn, okay? So that is my take on Anthony Richardson. He's my number 3 because he has the upside to be number 1. He is extremely athletically gifted, but also extremely flawed as a passer. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. It's Mitch. That is my number 3 quarterback in this year's NFL draft, Anthony Richardson of Florida. The second best quarterback in the 2023 NFL draft is Bryce Young of Alabama. I like both of these quarterbacks at the top of this list. I think both deserve to be top 5 picks in this 2023 NFL draft. But at number 2, I have to go with Bryce Young. And there's one major factor as to why. His size is a big weakness. If you do not believe that size does not matter at the NFL level, you are mistaken. It's very rare that a small quarterback is a good quarterback. And not only is good, but lasts a long time. And a quarterback like Bryce Young has just never really ever been seen before. He is maybe a rarity, potentially. He has the skill to compensate for his size. But would that make him the best quarterback in this class? The number 1 pick? Personally, no, because he has more downside than I think people are allowing themselves to believe. A lot of people want to believe that Bryce Young is that dude, that he is special. But you must have a reality to it, and you must be able to see both sides. So I see both sides. Let's break down what I see when it comes to Bryce Young. So first of all, the size is a major question. He is very, very small. Like, I'm talking tiny for an NFL quarterback. He is smaller than me. He is 5'10", and he is barely 200 pounds, and that's soaking wet. Okay, that is having a lot of water before that weigh-in, right? He is short, and he is skinny, okay? He does not have a lot of bulk to him. This is not Russell Wilson. Some people may make you believe that. This is not Russell Wilson. Have you seen Russell Wilson's rear end? I mean, that guy has junk in the trunk, okay? He is not that. He is skinny, he is tiny, he is slim, okay? And with that, you have to be concerned about the NFL level and how pockets may collapse on him, and throwing the ball with power may be a massive question over the middle of the field, because we've seen shorter quarterbacks struggle with the ability to throw at the intermediate level down the middle of the field, especially when under pressure and the pocket is collapsing. What is he as a quarterback, though? He is a distributor with strong accuracy and timing, especially within 5 to 12 yards. Within that area of the field, he might be the best quarterback in this class. He has a quick release and gets it out quick. He is smart, very smart, and he is an incredible, innate, natural playmaker who plays really well in rhythm. When he is feeling himself, he is tough to stop. In terms of positives and strengths, to me, it starts with his toughness. So why do I believe he will be able to overcome his size? Because if I believe he's the second best quarterback in this class, and I believe he should be the number 2 pick in this draft, I believe to some degree that he should be able to overcome his size. Because, like I said, I don't know if there's been a smaller quarterback that's played at a high level in the NFL. So this guy would have to be some sort of outlier. And I believe his toughness is the first reason why he could be an outlier. Because he takes a ton of hits versus Texas, versus Georgia. I was at the Texas game. I was impressed by his toughness. His ability to hang in the pocket, his ability to move around and buy the extra second, throw and get hit, be able to get back up and seemingly be fine and never really get injured throughout his college career. So all those things in terms of toughness. Mental, extremely tough. You know, being able to withstand pressure, being able to withstand, the noise of the road crowd when you're the Alabama quarterback and all the world and pressure is on you and eyes are on you. Mentally, he's extremely tough. In all situations, he's composed, he's calm. I love that about his game. I also love how physically tough he is. As small as he is, he doesn't ever seem to be beat up. So that's good. Now, college, NFL, different animal in terms of athletes you're facing on a weekly basis, but still, that's a good start. Now, he also faced a lot of teams and defenses, I would say, that game plan specifically for his style of play. Knowing that he's smaller, he's already seen a ton of defenses that have game planned for potentially what you would conceive as his weaknesses. I especially thought that Texas did a good job of kind of containing him in that second game of the year last year, where seeing how they were trying to blitz him and attack him up the middle of the pocket and try to contain him within the pocket to try to get him to get hits. And I thought he did a really good job of navigating it. And, he's played Georgia, really good defenses. And I felt like he's done a really good job of trying to, overcome other teams, knowing how good he is, right? Because Bryce, as the quarterback of Alabama for basically 2 years, was like the dude in college football, right? So a lot of teams had the book on him at college, but they still couldn't beat him a lot of the time. Or if they did, it wasn't really his fault, to be fair. He has, to me, what really stood out is just a great natural feel as a quarterback. His feel and his feet and his ability to move, his pocket presence, his ability to manipulate pressure in like a Mahomesian, Russell Wilson type of way is extremely special. I think that jumps out at you every time you watch him. His natural playmaking and athleticism from a quickness, twitchiness standpoint is extremely impressive. He has extremely strong sack avoidance. I think he's probably the best in this class at avoiding sacks. Him and Richardson really stood out in this regard, in my opinion. His twitch to avoid sacks is second to none. He looks a lot like Deshaun Watson in this area to me, except he's smaller, which might actually help him because he's so small. It's a small target to hit. He's really savvy in how he can manipulate rushers and find ways to slip out of the pocket when he sees pressure coming underneath, or his ability to dip under pressure if he sees them going over top. He's very savvy at finding lanes as a smaller quarterback to throw the football. And I think that will serve him well at the NFL level. That's something that Mahomes does extremely well, is his ability to, if there's an edge rusher coming and looping around, he dips underneath, he finds the lane, he throws sidearm. And in combination with that, Bryce Young does a very good job and the best in this class at differing and delivering the ball in different ways. So he can, like I said, dip under pressure, throw the ball sidearm, or step up and look like he's going to run and then throw the ball, with barely any of his legs, really to have anything to do with it. A lot of it to do with his arm and his delivery and the flexibility in his arm that I said a guy like Will Levis does not have, okay? So I love those two skills in combination. You could be really good at avoiding sacks, really good at manipulating pressure, but not very good at delivering the football in a multitude of ways. When you have both of these skills as a smaller quarterback, it makes me believe that I'll have more faith in you to succeed at the NFL level, because you'll be able to pass the ball under pressure without having to set and take a hit, which is one of my issues with Tua, because Tua is a smaller quarterback, but he does not have the skill that Bryce Young has as a passer, okay? Now, he's very calm under pressure. He's always looking downfield. It never feels like pressure is getting to him or he's ever rushed in his process. He's always taking his sweet time to get the ball to where it needs to go. Now, that could be a negative sometimes, but we'll get to that. Okay, pre-snap, he is very strong. He's the best quarterback in this class before the snap of the football. Reading defenses, sending a guy out in motion. Okay, I've got this matchup. This is man coverage. I think a lot of this comes from learning from Bill O'Brien. As a Patriots fan, I know Bill O'Brien is a wizard in terms of teaching quarterbacks matchups, teaching quarterbacks protections, teaching quarterbacks the offense and the details of pre-snap communication. Bryce Young is very good at this, and he is the best in this class. He has really good eyes scanning the field from read 1 through read whatever, 4, whatever. So going through his reads 1, 2, 3, 4, he's able to do that soundly, effectively, consistently. He's good with his eyes in terms of manipulating safeties as well and looking one way, throwing the other. Just being a gamer in that facet. And he also has incredible field vision in terms of his playmaking vision. So not just vision to see all the throws when he's in the pocket, but also his ability when he's escaping pressure to still find the open man and identify that guy, which is really hard to do. So not only does he have the skill to manipulate pressure and throw off of different angles, but he also has the vision to see the open man. Now, I don't want to get to the negatives before I get there, but I wish he would evolve on where he sometimes goes with the ball. Because a lot of the times he will escape pressure, dip around, throw the ball sidearm, whatever. But it will be like a 3-yard check down and that guy runs for like 8 yards. Sometimes I'd like to see that next level if he can try to like get the ball down the field more. Sometimes he reluctantly checks it down or he doesn't try to force the ball down the field. Sometimes I think he could make more throws, more aggressive decisions down the field. Okay, so that leads us into the next area of strengths. He learned how to set protections under Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien ran a lot of Patriot offensive stuff in the drop back passing game. There was a lot of RPOs and other things from Alabama, but Bill O'Brien did bring some Patriot offense to the Alabama offense, and Bryce Young did a really good job of setting protections. He's the only guy in this class that I saw do this at all. And it's rare that a quarterback in college actually is asked to set protections. Usually that's on the center or the offensive line. And from what I saw from a lot of these quarterbacks in this class, a lot of them don't even really know what to do on hot situations, blitz situations, and where to go with the ball. I mean, I struggled to see that with Richardson and Levis. So Bryce Young does a good job at seeing the blitz before it comes, what to do with the ball when the blitz comes, and then also before a pressure even comes, identifying it and helping his offensive line identify the pressure. He just processes a lot of information, both pre-snap and post-snap. And I love all these things about him. I mean, I'm a Tom Brady fan, okay? That's my favorite quarterback of all time. So if you're a very smart quarterback, I will be a fan of you. And that's what I see from Bryce Young. He does a good job of just taking what's there. This was another big Tom Brady trait. But anything that's open underneath, Bryce Young is going to throw it. Sometimes he tries to create a bigger throw down the field, and maybe he should move on from it faster. Maybe he should just learn to take the underneath throw at the NFL level so he doesn't have to take unnecessary hits and things of that nature. And things can close fast in the NFL, so it's hard to always be that playmaker, but he is mostly pretty good at just taking what's there and living to see another day. He doesn't force a lot of passes, and I think that comes into play especially because he is so good at getting away from pressure that he can throw the ball away or scramble or make a throw that isn't as risky as the one that's maybe on the platter or the first or second read, right? Then after that, he doesn't struggle at all at staying on a primary receiver. So he doesn't just stay on that primary receiver. He doesn't stare them down. A lot of young quarterbacks have an issue with that, moving on to the next progression, moving on to the next receiver, or just simply making a better decision, scramble, or doing something else. He's accurate on the move. I think he's the most accurate quarterback on the move in this class, throwing on the run. And even to his left, he threw a lot of nice passes to his left, moving to his left. He has great feel and playmaking ability, sees things at the last second that rarely other players ever see, and can adjust and make accurate throws on the move despite his body language or his mechanics. He's extremely patient, sometimes too patient. He's slick and smooth on RPOs. Really good in the RPO game, kind of like Tua at Alabama, where they're just really slick, get it out there quick, accurately, all that. He has a nice little juke move in space. When he gets in space and he's scrambling, he can put a little move on you because of his quickness. And I did feel his team was better in 2021 than 2022. So that kind of comes into play of looking at some of his tape. He, I think, more so had to carry his team in 2022 than he did in 2021, where I thought his team was absolutely loaded, especially on offense. None of his receivers, to me, really stood out this past season. He had some good players, really good running back, but I wasn't blown away on tape by the receivers I was watching out of Alabama, the way that I was blown away by some of the Ohio State receivers, Marvin Harrison in particular. But I feel like the Alabama offense, the scheme is better than Ohio State. The scheme was probably the best of the quarterbacks I saw in terms of just intricate, detailed drop-back passing game. But that also goes to show that he can handle detailed NFL traditional drop-back passing game and be able to handle pre-snap, post-snap responsibilities. Okay, so those things are positives and negatives. Negatives, weaknesses. Pressure in his face is a bit of a problem. If he's not able to move out of the way, okay, if he has to stand there and make a throw with pressure coming at him, his velocity is lost a lot of the time, and his arm is just not strong enough to be able to power throw the ball in the middle of the field. And I noticed that a lot against good teams, okay, really good defenses, where he's under duress up the middle, and the D-line's got a good contain, doesn't let him get out. You've got to stand here like Tom Brady, and you've got to throw the ball and get crunched. And he just does not have the arm or the size to be able to be that type of quarterback, okay? His arm does have more power and pop, especially the more I watched it, than I would have thought. But he is not the best power thrower. He's not a great power thrower. And what I mean by that is he's not going to have the most zip on tight window throws. And that can be somewhat a problem at the NFL level, because if you have to fit the ball into a tight window, you have to be able to throw that ball with velocity. And his velocity is good. It's fine. It's nothing special. It's especially good in short to intermediate throws, but definitely lacking on deep passes. Okay? Because of his size, he does bail out of the pocket sometimes too quickly. That might just be a necessity, okay? He puts more noticeable force into throws. You notice him trying to force the ball with power than somebody like CJ Stroud or really any of these other quarterbacks in the top 5, in my opinion. His mechanics and the way he throws the ball, you see him forcing the ball. He has a stronger arm than somebody like Tua, though. Like, if you're comparing him to Alabama quarterbacks, I think his arm is similar to Mac. It might even be slightly stronger than Mac's, but it's definitely stronger than Tua's, okay? A lot of time on a lot of throws. And that's the thing with me, right? So he usually finds somebody to throw to, but he has a lot of time. And it maybe masks, I'm not certain about this, but it might mask some of the deficiencies that you would see at the NFL level. If his process is always sped up, he may struggle because he's so good at playmaking that that's not always going to be there for him if he doesn't have a great O-line. Okay, so I do think whoever drafts him, and I think Carolina and Houston are both in good position. They both have good offensive lines. So I think if you're a Texans fan, you shouldn't be too worried about that as long as you continue to have the protection that you do have, I think, right now. So especially, I would say more so on the interior, but I mean, that might be a preference thing. I don't exactly know. What else we got here in terms of negatives? So he won't be able to run a lot at the NFL level. He did scramble quite a bit in key situations in college, and I think he can do that a little bit, but I don't think he's going to run away from anybody. He's not that fast, and he's not like explosive in open space. He's not Kyler Murray. I think a lot of people look at him and they look at the draft stock of where people think he's going to go, and they assume he's Kyler Murray. But Kyler Murray is like different. Like, that guy's like the road runner on the NFL field. Bryce Young's a much different player. He's more of a distributor, and he's more of a high IQ player. Kyler Murray is more just an athlete, even though he's small, which is rare. But they're definitely different players. And Kyler is able to run away from people. Bryce Young can't. So don't expect Bryce Young to run very much. He might run a couple times a game, but that's about it. Okay? He more so runs or scrambles to throw the ball. And that's a good thing. I mean, that's what Mahomes does. That's what Josh Allen does. That's what Joe Burrow does. So that's what most of the greatest quarterbacks in this game today do. He doesn't throw the ball down the field a lot. He prefers to throw the ball over the middle of the field, short and intermediate range. So if you have a good, intricate, detailed passing game, he can be an excellent distributor, an accurate playmaking distributor of the football at that position. But if you're in a shot offense where you're running the ball a ton and then you're looking to throw the ball deep, he's not a fit. There's better fits for that offense than Bryce Young. I am worried a little bit about him consistently taking hits in the NFL because of his size. I saw Tua get concussed 3 times this year or whatever it was. I'm a little bit worried about if he gets hit, and he's going to get hit hard, how he's able to deal with that at some point. He is not super accurate. Like you would think for a guy that's smaller, more of a pocket passer, as smart as he is, he's mechanically sound and consistent. But his placement with the football is somewhat inconsistent. He's not Drew Brees in terms of his pinpoint accuracy and mechanical nature. He's accurate enough, especially at college. But I wonder how that may change at NFL because, it's not always a perfect pass. Like there's a more accurate quarterback in this class, in my opinion. He sometimes, if he should throw it here, he throws it here, right? So there's slight differences. I never really see him throw consistent, perfect accuracy passes the way that a Peyton would throw it, or Brady or Breeze or Burrow now does. He doesn't have pinpoint accuracy, but he's accurate. Okay? I hope that makes sense. He plays off balance a little bit too often. He tries to throw, when he doesn't need to, even in the pocket with time, he tries to, throw off balance. And that affects his arm strength, in my opinion, and sometimes allows him to miss throws that he should make. And lastly, he has a lot of plays where he impresses with avoidance and ability to move, but then he doesn't make a super impressive throw. He'll rather throw it away or he'll throw it short, and it doesn't really amount for anything, but he still made this incredible play before he threw it. So his play before the throw is more impressive than the throw, if that makes sense. It's not a Mahomes thing where it's he moves subtly and even impressively, but then the throw is wow, how did he do that? Or Justin Herbert, where he slides around the pocket, moves to the right, throws a sidearm laser 35 yards. Bryce Young can't do that, okay? And that's why when I get to the overview, I don't see him ever being elite in the NFL because he doesn't have the physical talent. He doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the speed. He doesn't have the arm strength. He doesn't even have the accuracy to be none of these things, okay, in my opinion, at an elite level. He's not bad in terms of accuracy, arm strength. I'm not worried about it, but I'm not excited about it. I'm not overjoyed, right? His size is a major concern. His speed is good for the average quarterback. For a guy his size, it's concerning, right? I was concerned about Baker Mayfield's speed. I was concerned about Johnny Manziel's speed. But his style of play is different. If you put him in an offense where he's in a very schematically sound offense, drop back passing game, RPOs, quick passing, intermediate short, spread offense, he'll be a good quarterback and he'll be a very smart distributor, and you can win a lot of games with him as long as he can stay healthy and you protect him. But if you're asking him to be Herbert, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, he won't be able to just overcome bad protection, bad receivers, like a bad scheme for his skill set. He is not that type of player. And as smart as he is, he doesn't have the arm like, a top upper echelon pocket passer that you would see in the traditional NFL. He doesn't have the accuracy like that guy. He doesn't have the size, right? When you think of those type of guys, right? He doesn't have the release of Dan Marino. He doesn't have the arm strength of a Brett Favre. He doesn't have the accuracy of Tom Brady. So he's a good player. And I do think he is a top 2 quarterback without a doubt, because he has a lot higher floor than somebody like Richardson, and he has a lot to like about his game. But I just wonder if he has enough physical ability to have the upside that some other people feel he does. I don't think he's a franchise-changing quarterback. I think he's going to be a good quarterback, okay? So I see him in the NFL for many years, as long as he can stay healthy, being a top 15-ish quarterback, okay? But I'm probably not picking him first overall in this draft. The best quarterback in the 2023 NFL draft is CJ Stroud of the Ohio State University. CJ Stroud is, without a doubt, to me, the best quarterback in this class. He is the number 1 pick in my mind to the Carolina Panthers. And there's one thing that separates him from Bryce Young or any other quarterback in this class. He is easily the most NFL projectable talent at this position and the most NFL ready quarterback coming out of the draft. And there is one skill set that separates him from Bryce Young and the rest of the class. And that, to me, is his power throwing and his accuracy and his pure pocket passing ability. CJ Stroud is a pure, gifted pocket passer. He has good size for the position. He has good athleticism, deceptive, which we'll get to, for the position. He has big hands. He can control the football. He's not going to put it on the ground very often. And that will allow him to play in a multitude of weathers and environments, which he did at Ohio State. He has the skill set that transfers to Sunday the best. Okay? Now, I will say this. I like CJ Stroud a lot. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I'm not certain he'll be a great quarterback. I'm not in love with him the way I was with like Joe Burrow, for example. But I do feel he has enough coming out of the draft to believe he can play and succeed right away. And he also has a hint of upside that I think he can still tap into that might allow him to become one of those top 5, top 7 quarterbacks in the NFL. Okay? So I like him right now. I'm not like in love with him. One of the big things that separates him is the amount of NFL throws that he makes at Ohio State. The amount of deep ins, deep outs, comebacks, just goes like NFL Sunday throws that you see Justin Herbert and Mahomes and Allen making every Sunday. CJ Stroud was making already on Saturdays, which is huge. I think when you look at somebody like Bryce Young, he's making a lot more, I guess you would call it scheme throws. He is in a traditional NFL drop back passing game a lot of the time, but it's a lot more short and intermediate stuff. Stroud can throw those, but also makes a ton of deep throws in a similar fashion to somebody like Joe Burrow in the NFL. I see the comparisons between Burrow and Stroud, especially in terms of one key trait, which is their accuracy. CJ Stroud is extremely accurate, almost in a way where I was like, man, this guy like doesn't miss. He's like bullseye, dart every single time. It's just a dot every time this guy is throwing the ball, and no matter if it's 5 yards or it's 30 yards, like it looks like a handoff the way he's throwing these 25-yard corner routes. Like it's really impressive. Mechanically, he's extremely sound. And to me, that's the number one thing for quarterbacks. I say this every year, but it's like a golfer. It's like a basketball shooter. It's anything where you have to do a repetition over and over and over again. There's a reason why Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. Nobody took their mechanics seriously, more serious than Tom Brady. Nobody was just so into that detail and the fixing of it and the evolving of it and the tweaking it like Tom Brady, to maintain the power, to maintain the strength, to maintain the accuracy of your passes, and to know where the ball is going to go every time you deliver it, to know how it feels coming off of your hand, all those things. CJ Stroud easily has the best mechanics, easily is the most consistently accurate quarterback in this class. Bryce Young, I even said, better before the snap, better in terms of reaction after the snap, but not as reliable in terms of accuracy or power throwing. Tight window throws in the NFL, 15-yard in route. I want CJ Stroud every single time, and now I want him twice on Sundays. So getting more into the strengths and the positives. That is the biggest one. The effortless arm. He doesn't have a huge arm. He doesn't have a cannon, but he has a strong arm. I would say we talk about Joe Burrow. He has the Joe Burrow accuracy, somewhat really close. He has the arm that is better than Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow has a good arm. It's like a little bit above average at the NFL level. Stroud's is good. Like he'll have a top half arm in the NFL, and one that I would say is better than Joe Burrow. It doesn't look hard, coming out of his hand. Most of the time, it looks extremely easy. And what I love about the way he throws the ball, it looks extremely crisp. It looks extremely clean every time. It looks the same. And then on top of that, he puts a ton of touch on all of his passes. Like, I think he's easily the best touch passer in this class. He understands how to make different throws, right? Short throws, screen throws, RPO throws, slants, ins, outs, deep, like he's a great passer of the football. There's a difference between throwing the ball hard and passing it. And he is a great passer. Also, I love his strong base. He has this strong wide base that almost looks like Joe Burrow. You know how Joe Burrow gets like really low and balanced? He throws the ball very similarly. His placement is beautiful all the time, pretty much, especially down the field. I think he has a very good deep ball, especially to the outside, outside the numbers. He's really good. Puts the ball where it needs to go. It's not just a thing where, okay, I got to put it right on him every time. But like if the corner is like to the right, he'll put it in front of him this way. If the corner is like, he throws the back shoulder well. Like the placement of the ball, he knows where he's going to put it, which is an NFL top tier trait, right? That's Aaron Rodgers, a Peyton Manning type of accuracy, okay? His play action game is pretty good. We don't see it that often, but he does a good job of like going through his play action fake, setting his feet, and then even throwing across the field. So again, pretty effortless arm, good accuracy, all that stuff, but good technique on play action, which I think if he's drafted by Carolina, that will show up within Frank Reich's offense. He has a good combination of staying in the pocket and being able to take a hit and having the toughness to take a hit, and also the elusiveness enough to be able to move away and throw the ball rather away or throw the ball on the move. We saw this more in the Georgia game, which is the big kind of indicator of what he could do at the NFL level. I think one of the problems was he didn't really have to utilize it that much in college because his offensive line and his receivers were so good. Like his offense was very talented and his tackles, especially this past year, were really, really talented. So he didn't really have to move around a lot. He just subtly moved in the pocket, found a way to like manipulate the pressure, which he's very good at, has good pocket presence, good pocket movement, which is most important here, right? Tom Brady didn't run around and scramble. He just manipulated the pocket. Drew Brees, if you watch Drew Brees, the way they kind of moved around the pocket, that's what CJ Stroud does a majority of the time. He could learn to be more kind of diverse in terms of his getting outside the pocket, extending the play, creating that extra second. That's something that he's stressed that he wants to work on, and I think he will get better at, and that's where I think the untapped potential comes in, because it's not something I saw a ton from Justin Herbert in college. Justin Herbert plays almost like a different player a little bit in the NFL, and I think Stroud could do similar things to Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert in the NFL in terms of their ability to get away from pressure. It's not going to be like Lamar Jackson, but it's going to be able to like dip under the rush, avoid it, get to the right, throw that sidearm throw on the move to a crosser that's coming open, but it wouldn't be open if you stayed in the pocket. Understand what I mean? So that's kind of what I'm looking for a little bit more, but he does have the athleticism because you see him scramble, you see him run at times, and he definitely has it, and you also see it it's not a lot, but it's enough for me to indicate that I know it's there, okay? Georgia blitzed him a lot, and I think he did a really good job of moving around, moving within the pocket, and finding success, and really dicing them up in a way we didn't see from many quarterbacks last year or the year previous. So he was probably the best performance I've ever seen versus that defense, which speaks volumes. And even without some of his best receivers, he has really good vision under pressure. He never really looks at the rush. He's always looking down the field. He's trying to find his player, keeping focus down the field, and trying to create plays, trying to constantly create plays and elevating his teammates in these big moments, okay? He has good composure and confidence in the pocket. Even when faced with pressure, he remains calm. Even in a big situation, he remains calm and he can make the throw, okay? Fast inner clock. I think he's the best in this class at understanding the concept of an inner clock, which is something that Joe Burrow has struggled with in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes has struggled with in the NFL, holding on the ball too long sometimes, right? This is what Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were just out of this world at, right? Is just like understanding, okay, the rush is going to get here eventually. I've got to make a decision. I got to go through my progressions extremely fast, and I've got to find the right decision to go to. And CJ Stroud is really good at finding the right person to go to, going through all his reads, all his things, and then deciding extremely fast. Okay, bam, that's my guy. Throw it. Get rid of it. He's good at that. I think he actually helps his offensive line because of how good he is in that area. Now, in terms of his negatives, there aren't a lot, but there are some. So he has upside questions. Some people say that what is his upside? Is he a Jared Goff? Like, what is he? And I think he's more physically better than Jared Goff. I think he's more accurate than Jared Goff. I think he's a better drop back passer than Jared Goff. I don't really understand those comparisons personally. But I think that, and people also say like his support staff, his offense was so good, his offensive line, his receivers. What is he without that? Well, I mean, Joe Burrow has great receivers too in the NFL. So, you know what I mean? But CJ Stroud, I think if he's drafted by Carolina, he's got enough on the offensive line to protect him. He's good enough at manipulating pressure. The weapons may be a bit of a concern to get more production out of him, but you can always add on top of that. I think that his accuracy, his power in his arm, his tight window throws, his confidence, his swagger, his pocket manipulation, all strong enough for him to elevate offenses, okay? Elevating offenses is not always playmaking. It's not always arm angles. It's not always that, all right? Running. It's not that, okay? There's a reason why Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Dan Marino, Joe Montana are the greatest quarterbacks of all time. It's not because they could have run a 4.3 40, okay? So, upside, I'm a little like, I think there's more upside with the running, the scrambling, right? Not running, but scrambling to find a throw than he's shown in college. Great receiving core. Okay, that's a negative. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is unbelievable. Okay, this guy's going to be my number one receiver next year. I just saw the guy burning everybody. Like every time he needed to throw to somebody, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the guy. Seems to have a lot of time to throw and not under pressure that often, but I went through enough tape where I saw enough instances where he handled it pretty well. Not a lot of complicated reads sometimes, because his receivers are good, and a lot of times the first read is open, so he went to that guy. I mean, pretty simple. Sometimes doesn't see the underneath defenders, right? Doesn't see like let's say it's a simulated pressure where there's 6 guys that could come, but 4 come, and then 2 back out, and he misses the linebacker in coverage, and he throws it at him, and sometimes it's not picked off, but you could get in trouble there in the NFL, and he'll probably struggle early. A lot of young quarterbacks do. I think Herbert still does at seeing simulated pressure and guys dropping and guys coming. I will say about the offense point that he did run a more traditional passing offense and was relied on to pass the ball a lot more than somebody like Justin Fields out of Ohio State. So I don't see similarities in terms of their concepts or their schemes or anything like that. So I wouldn't worry that that's an Ohio State issue. On top of that, not a lot of answers versus the blitz. I think sometimes he struggled versus the blitz when he was sped up, and the Ohio State offense did not do a good enough job like Bill O'Brien did at Alabama of giving Bryce Young options and hots to throw the ball to. I felt like Ohio State was a little bit more scattered. We saw some issues against some teams that would blitz him off the edge, or like find intricate stunts up front that would get to him, and it would confuse him at times and throw his touch off and accuracy off a little bit. His tendency to back away and fade away. Now, he is still accurate when he does this, but when he is under pressure sometimes, or there's a muddied pocket, he does tend to like fade away and throw the ball. And he still completed a lot of these passes, but it is something that I don't exactly prefer. I'd rather him step into the throw and take the hit rather than trying to fade away and be Michael Jordan. He's not great at throwing on the run. It's not exactly his game. It's not Bryce Young, but he is good. He's probably going to get better at that, I would say. I didn't think Joe Burrow was exactly great at that coming out, and he proved me a little bit wrong. He didn't master protections like Bryce Young. This is more of a comparison thing because my 1 and 2 were pretty clearly above everybody else. But Bryce Young understands pre-snap probably more intricately, and especially protections, setting protections, than CJ Stroud. But then again, CJ Stroud might not be asked to do that at the NFL level. Some offenses do, like the Patriots, Bill O'Brien, Josh McDaniels offense. Some don't, okay? Some ask the center. So it might not be a thing that he really has to do as much. Then after that, you've got occasionally off on timing, especially early in the season. I noticed in the earlier tape last year, he wasn't as crisp with his accuracy and touch as he was later in the year, and I felt it was mostly a timing issue with the receivers. And he was dealing with new faces in new places. So those are some of the negatives, all right? But overall, man, I think this guy is the first pick in the draft. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. His ability to make the most NFL throws at the highest level with the best accuracy and the best power on his arm is elite. His presence, his composure, and his play in big games definitely speaks volumes. And he's also got great character. So all of those things speak to a franchise quarterback and a guy that has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL someday. CJ Stroud, I think, will go to the Carolina Panthers. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to Gronk spike the like button and subscribe. And guys, that is it for my quarterback evaluation and scouting for the 2023 class. I will include more scouting when it comes to the big board later, and of course the draft analysis and stuff of that. But we're moving on to new positions. If you want to see a specific position, let me know in the comments below. I'm definitely doing receivers probably next. I'm probably going to skip a couple positions that are less interesting, but I'll try to get to as many as I can. Thanks for watching, guys. It's Mitch. Peace.